Commander Maya Rodriguez stood at the viewing deck of the Earth diplomatic vessel Harmony, watching the sleek crystalline ship of the Vraxians approach. After 15 years of deep space signals and cautious information exchange, humanity was finally meeting their first advanced alien civilization face to face. Maya had trained for this moment her entire career, but nothing could have prepared her for how spectacularly wrong things were about to go. "Commander, the Vraxian delegation is ready to dock," Lieutenant James Park announced, his usual stoic demeanor betraying a hint of excitement. "All diplomatic protocols are in place, and the translation matrices are functioning at optimal levels." Maya nodded, straightening her crisp blue uniform. "Excellent. And our special passenger?" "Nova is secured in your quarters, Commander. Triple-checked the containment field myself." Maya allowed herself a small smile. Nova, her silver-furred rescue from a derelict mining station 3 years ago, had become the unofficial mascot of the Harmony. Technically, bringing a cat on a first-contact mission violated about 17 different protocols, but Maya couldn't bear to leave her behind. Besides, Nova had proven herself useful in detecting spatial anomalies that even their most sophisticated sensors missed. The docking procedure went smoothly, almost too smoothly. The Vraxians, with their translucent exoskeletons and floating appendages that seemed to defy physics, moved with a grace that made human movements appear clumsy in comparison. Their leader, High Coordinator ZYX, approached Maya with a series of harmonious tones that their translation matrix converted into perfect English. "Commander Rodriguez, we are honored to initiate this historic meeting between our species." Maya bowed slightly, exactly 15 degrees as specified in the diplomatic briefings. "The honor is ours, High Coordinator. Welcome aboard the Harmony." Everything was proceeding according to plan until a flash of silver streaked across the docking bay. Maya's heart stopped. She knew that blur anywhere. Somehow, Nova had not only escaped her quarters but had managed to disable a containment field rated to hold against vacuum. The Vraxians' reaction was immediate and dramatic. Their translucent bodies pulsed with waves of bright colors, and their floating appendages contracted into tight spirals. High Coordinator ZYX emitted a frequency that made the translation matrix screech in protest. "Bioweapon. The humans have deployed a bioweapon." Nova, completely oblivious to the diplomatic crisis she was causing, sat down in the middle of the docking bay and began grooming herself. "No, no." Maya stepped forward, hands raised in a universal gesture of peace. "That's just Nova, my cat. She's a companion animal, completely harmless." The Vraxians' confusion only seemed to grow. "You willingly share your vessel with an autonomous predator?" ZYX's voice wavered between fascination and horror. Maya watched as Nova finished her grooming and decided that First Officer Chen's boots needed a thorough inspection. The cat weaved between the officer's legs, leaving strands of silver fur on his perfectly polished boots. "Perhaps," Maya said carefully, "this is an opportunity to discuss one of humanity's most unique characteristics, our ability to form bonds with other species." The Vraxians' colors shifted to a deep blue, which Maya hoped indicated curiosity rather than anger. Nova, having finished with Chen's boots, was now cautiously approaching the aliens, her tail held high like a question mark. "Fascinating," one of the Vraxian scientists murmured, their appendages unfurling slightly. "It displays no fear response despite our obvious biological differences." Maya held her breath as Nova reached the group of aliens. The cat sat down, looked up at the towering crystalline beings, and let out a soft mrp of greeting. To everyone's surprise, High Coordinator ZYX's exoskeleton briefly flashed with patterns that looked remarkably similar to Nova's tabby markings. "Your species tamed predators for companionship?" "Not exactly tamed," Maya explained, watching Nova charm her way through the alien delegation. "We formed mutual partnerships. Cats chose to live alongside humans thousands of years ago because it benefited both species. They're independent beings who choose to be our companions." The concept seemed to both disturb and intrigue the Vraxians. Their society was built on absolute control and predictability, yet here was a species that not only tolerated but celebrated autonomous, unpredictable creatures in their midst. As Nova began purring, the sound caused ripples of light to dance across the Vraxians' exoskeletons. The diplomatic crisis was transforming into something entirely unexpected, a genuine cultural exchange. Commander Rodriguez, ZYX said finally, "I believe we have much to learn from each other. Perhaps starting with how your species learned to coexist with such remarkable creatures." Maya smiled, watching as Nova made herself comfortable among the forest of crystalline appendages. "High Coordinator, that's quite a story. And it might just help you understand humanity better than any diplomatic briefing ever could." The next few days aboard the Harmony proved to be an exercise in interspecies diplomacy that no training manual could have prepared Maya for. Nova had inadvertently become the center of attention, and the Vraxians' reaction to her ranged from fascinated horror to cautious curiosity. Lieutenant Park had established a makeshift observation area in one of the ship's conference rooms, where Vraxian scientists spent hours watching Nova go about her daily routines. Maya couldn't decide if it was more amusing or concerning that a simple house cat had commandeered so much attention from one of the most technologically advanced species humanity had ever encountered. Their brain patterns show significant spikes whenever she changes direction without warning, reported Dr. Lyra Patel, the ship's xenobiologist, reviewing the Vraxians' biological data. "It's as if they physically can't process the concept of randomness." Maya watched through the observation window as Nova batted around a floating light sphere the Vraxians had created to track her movements. "Their entire civilization is built on predictability, isn't it?" "Precisely," Lyra nodded, making notes on her tablet. "The Vraxians evolved in crystal formations, developing a society based on precise mathematical patterns. The very idea of keeping an unpredictable creature as a companion challenges their fundamental worldview." The situation became more complex when High Coordinator ZYX requested a formal meeting to discuss what they called the Nova Protocol. Maya found herself sitting across from the crystalline being in the ship's main conference room, trying not to show her amusement at how seriously they were taking this. "We have analyzed the data from our observations," ZYX began, their exoskeleton pulsing with patterns that the translation matrix interpreted as formal academic notation. "Your cat exhibits behaviors that defy our predictive models. This presents concerns." "What kind of concerns?" Maya asked, already suspecting where this was heading. "We have detected that several of our younger scientists are developing irregular thought patterns after prolonged exposure to the creature. They have begun asking questions about chaos theory." Maya bit back a smile. "And this is problematic. Commander, you must understand. Our society functions on absolute certainty. The concept that a being could choose to cooperate while maintaining complete autonomy is unsettling. Some of our crew have started suggesting that perhaps not everything needs to be controlled to be beneficial." The implications hit Maya like a gravitational wave. Nova wasn't just challenging their views about pets, she was inadvertently introducing the Vraxians to entirely new ways of thinking about order and chaos, control and freedom. The situation reached a tipping point when one of the younger Vraxian scientists, Vex, began attempting to replicate Nova's behaviors. Maya walked into the observation room one morning to find the crystalline being lying on its side, mimicking Nova's relaxed posture, its appendages curled in what was unmistakably a cat-like position. "Vex," ZYX's voice carried tones of what could only be described as embarrassment. "What are you doing?" "Conducting an immersive behavioral study," Vex responded, not moving from their position. "I find that understanding increases when one attempts to experience rather than merely observe." The other Vraxians' exoskeletons flickered with patterns that the translation matrix couldn't quite interpret, but Maya recognized discomfort when she saw it. Nova, for her part, seemed delighted by Vex's imitation, approaching the alien and head-butting their crystalline surface in approval. "This is precisely the kind of irregular behavior I was concerned about," ZYX said to Maya. Your cat is disrupting our cultural harmony. Or perhaps, Maya suggested carefully, she's helping your people explore new ways of thinking. Every major scientific breakthrough in human history came from someone willing to think differently. But different thinking leads to unpredictable outcomes, ZYX countered, their patterns showing increasing distress. And sometimes, Maya smiled as Nova began teaching Vex the art of paw grooming. Unpredictable outcomes lead to the most remarkable discoveries. The debate might have continued, but at that moment, the ship's emergency sirens began blaring. Lieutenant Park's voice came over the comm system, tense and urgent. "Commander, we're detecting multiple hull breaches in the Vraxian vessel. Some kind of spaceborne parasites are eating through their crystalline structure." Maya watched as Nova's ears perked up, her attention suddenly focused on something none of them could see. The cat's tail began twitching in that distinctive way that always preceded a hunt. "High Coordinator," Maya said slowly, an idea forming in her mind, "how would you feel about letting a little chaos help solve this problem?" ZYX's patterns swirled with uncertainty, but as another alarm blared, they responded, "Perhaps, this is an opportunity to test your theory about unpredictable outcomes." Maya grinned. "Nova," she called out, "want to go hunting?" The Vraxian ship glittered like a massive crystalline snowflake in space, its once perfect geometric patterns now marred by spreading patches of darkness. Through the observation window, Maya could see tiny movements within those dark areas, the space parasites multiplying and consuming the living crystal of the vessel's hull. "Our defensive systems are ineffective," reported ZYX, their patterns flickering with distress. "The parasites adapt to each frequency we generate. They're learning our patterns faster than we can create new ones." Maya watched as Nova paced back and forth in front of the window, tail twitching with predatory focus. The cat's eyes tracked movement patterns that the ship's sensors couldn't even detect. Lieutenant Park had rigged a specialized spacesuit for Nova, complete with gravity regulators and communication systems, but Maya still felt her heart race at the thought of what they were about to attempt. "Are you sure about this, Commander?" Dr. Patel asked, adjusting the neural interface that would allow them to see through Nova's eyes. "We're betting a lot on a cat's hunting instincts. Sometimes the most sophisticated problems require the simplest solutions," Maya replied, helping secure Nova's suit. "And there's nothing more simply effective than a cat on the hunt." The airlock chamber hummed as it prepared for deployment. Nova sat calmly in her custom suit, seeming to understand the gravity of the situation. The Vraxian scientists clustered around the monitoring stations, their crystalline forms vibrating with a mixture of anxiety and fascination. "Remember," Maya addressed the assembled team, "Nova doesn't think in patterns. She doesn't follow predictable rules. That's exactly why this might work. The parasites have adapted to the Vraxians' orderly attacks, but they've never faced anything like a cat's hunting strategy." "Deploying in 3, 2, 1. Park's voice counted down as the airlock opened. Nova launched herself into space with practiced grace, the suit's gravity regulators allowing her to move as naturally as she would on the ship. Through the neural interface, they could all see what she saw, a complex thermal view of the parasite's movement, invisible to both human and Vraxian eyes. "Extraordinary," Vex whispered, their patterns rippling with excitement. "The creature perceives reality in a completely different spectrum than our sensors." They watched as Nova stalked through space, her movements entirely unpredictable yet perfectly precise. The parasites, used to responding to the Vraxians' mathematical attack patterns, seemed confused by this new threat that followed no logical rules. "Look at that," Dr. Patel pointed to her readings. "The parasites are trying to establish a pattern to Nova's movements, but they can't. She's literally too random for them to adapt to." Nova pounced on her first cluster of parasites, her suit's containment field activating automatically to capture them. The tiny organisms, for all their ability to counter sophisticated defense systems, had no response to the simple, direct attack of a predator. "The parasites are attempting to communicate with each other," ZYX observed, studying the data streams. "They're trying to form a collective response, but they cannot predict where she will strike next. Maya smiled as Nova continued her hunt, methodically clearing sections of the hull with the efficient precision that only a cat could manage. That's because Nova isn't following a program or a pattern. She's following instinct, millions of years of evolutionary programming that can't be hacked or adapted to. The Vraxians watched in amazement as Nova systematically eliminated the parasite infestation. Her seemingly chaotic movements were actually an intricate dance of hunting patterns too complex for even their advanced algorithms to decode. Within hours, the dark patches on their ship began to recede. "I believe," ZYX said slowly, their patterns showing deep contemplation, "we may have been too quick to dismiss the value of unpredictability. Your cat has demonstrated that chaos, when properly directed, can be more effective than the most ordered systems." The cleanup operation continued for several more hours, with Nova displaying endless patience in hunting down every last parasite. When she finally returned through the airlock, she seemed almost disappointed that the hunt was over. Maya removed her suit, and Nova immediately began grooming herself as if she hadn't just saved an alien spacecraft. "She appears completely unconcerned with her achievement," Vex noted, still attempting to mimic Nova's relaxed posture. "That's cats for you," Maya laughed, scratching Nova behind the ears. "They do the impossible and act like it was their idea all along." But the impact of Nova's success went far beyond just saving the Vraxian ship. Maya could see it in the way the aliens moved now, slightly less rigid, their patterns showing new variations that would have been unthinkable just days ago. They had witnessed something profound: the power of embracing the unexpected, the value of instinct over pure logic. "Commander Rodriguez," ZYX approached, their crystalline form shimmering with new, more organic patterns, "our council has reached a decision. We would like to propose a formal study of Earth's companion animals. Perhaps there are more lessons to be learned from your species' acceptance of controlled chaos." Maya looked down at Nova, who had fallen asleep in the middle of the conference room floor, paws twitching as she chased dream parasites. "High Coordinator, I think this could be the beginning of a beautiful partnership." The incident would later be recorded in both human and Vraxian historical archives as the Nova Protocol, the first documented case of a house cat saving an alien civilization. But more importantly, it marked the beginning of a fundamental change in how the Vraxians viewed the universe. Sometimes, they learned, the most perfect order could be found in embracing a little chaos. 1 month after the parasite incident, the Harmony's research lab had been transformed into what Lieutenant Park jokingly called the Interstellar Pet Academy. Vraxian scientists, led by the ever-enthusiastic Vex, had set up an array of crystalline monitoring equipment to study Nova and the growing collection of data about Earth's domestic animals. "Observe this neural pattern," Vex announced, their forms shimmering with excitement as they displayed a holographic representation of Nova's brain activity. "When the creature sleeps, it processes information in ways that defy our traditional computing models. It's simultaneously ordered and chaotic." Maya watched as the young Vraxian scientist had grown increasingly animated in their studies, their once rigid crystalline patterns now flowing with more natural, almost organic movements. The change wasn't limited to Vex, all the Vraxian researchers had begun showing signs of what their superiors called concerning flexibility. "The implications are revolutionary," Dr. Patel added, reviewing the data. "The Vraxians' crystalline computing systems are based on pure mathematical progression, but Nova's brain shows how biological systems can process information through controlled chaos. It's like comparing classical physics to quantum mechanics." The research had expanded beyond just cats. The Vraxians had begun studying Earth's historical relationships with all manner of pets, dogs, birds, horses, and even fish. Each species revealed new patterns of cooperation that challenged their fundamental understanding of order and relationship. "I still don't understand," High Coordinator ZYX admitted during one of their regular briefings. "How did humans first decide to form bonds with other species? Our historical records show that we avoided all contact with other lifeforms on our world." Maya considered the question. "We didn't really decide," it happened naturally. Take cats, for instance. They started living near us because we attracted mice with our grain storage. We benefited from their hunting, they benefited from our resources. Over time, that practical relationship evolved into something deeper. Unplanned symbiosis, ZYX's patterns shifted thoughtfully. The very concept would have been considered dangerous in our society. And yet, their discussion was interrupted by a commotion from the lab. They arrived to find Vex and several other researchers clustered around a new holographic display, their patterns flickering rapidly in what Maya had learned to recognize as intense excitement. "Commander, High Coordinator," Vex called out, "we've made a breakthrough. We've been analyzing the emotional bonding patterns between humans and their companion animals, and we've discovered something extraordinary." The hologram showed a complex web of neural connections, comparing human and animal brain patterns during various interactions. Alongside it, a new crystal matrix glowed with similar patterns. "We've developed a prototype," Vex explained, "a new form of crystalline computing based on what we've learned from pet-human relationships. Instead of forcing order onto chaos, it embraces controlled uncertainty. The results are unprecedented." Dr. Patel's eyes widened as she reviewed the data. "This is incredible. The processing power is beyond anything we've achieved with traditional computing, and it's using a fraction of the energy." Nova, who had been napping on top of some sensitive equipment, despite everyone's best efforts to keep her off it, chose this moment to wake up and stretch. The assembled scientists watched in fascination as her casual movement created ripples in their sensor readings. "You see?" Vex pointed excitedly. "Even her simplest actions demonstrate perfect inefficiency, movements that seem wasteful but serve essential biological and neurological functions. We've been approaching optimization all wrong." Maya noticed that High Coordinator ZYX's patterns had shifted to a new configuration she'd never seen before. "Is everything all right, Coordinator?" "I am experiencing uncertainty," ZYX replied slowly. "And for the first time, I do not find it disturbing. Your cat has not just helped us develop new technology, she's helping us question our most basic assumptions about the nature of progress." The impact of these discoveries quickly spread beyond the research lab. The Vraxian crew members began experimenting with introducing elements of controlled chaos into their daily routines. Some started taking different paths to their posts each day. Others began incorporating random variables into their calculations, finding that it often led to more efficient solutions. "We're recording a 47% increase in creative problem-solving among the crew," Lieutenant Park reported, reviewing the station's efficiency logs. "Apparently, a little unpredictability goes a long way." Maya found Vex in the observation lounge later that day, watching Nova play with a beam of light from a distant star. The young scientist's crystalline form had evolved to include swirling patterns that would have been considered signs of instability in traditional Vraxian society. "We always believed that perfect order was the highest form of existence," Vex said quietly. "But look at her, she follows no discernible pattern, yet achieves perfect harmony with her environment. What other truths have we missed in our pursuit of absolute certainty?" Maya smiled, watching as Nova pounced on the light beam, missed completely, and immediately pretended that was exactly what she meant to do. Sometimes the universe's greatest lessons come from its simplest teachers. "The Council has requested that we extend our research mission," ZYX announced, approaching them. "They want to establish a permanent joint study program, not just about pets, but about all the ways humans have learned to balance order and chaos." "And how do you feel about that?" Maya asked, noting the increasingly complex patterns flowing through the High Coordinator's form. ZYX's response carried a hint of what could only be described as humor. "I find myself looking forward to the uncertainty of it all. Perhaps that is Nova's greatest gift to us, teaching us not to fear the unknown, but to embrace it as part of life's natural pattern." Nova, having grown bored with the light beam, sauntered over to rub against ZYX's crystalline legs, leaving behind a few silver hairs that glittered against the alien's transparent surface. The High Coordinator made no attempt to remove them. 6 months after Nova's first encounter with the Vraxians, the Harmony's docking bay was barely recognizable. Crystal lattices had been integrated with human technology, creating an environment that seamlessly blended order and chaos. At its center stood a new installation, the headquarters of the Interstellar Pet Ambassador Program, IPAP. Maya stood before the assembled human and Vraxian dignitaries, trying not to smile as Nova sat regally beside her, wearing a specially designed collar that sparkled with the same crystalline patterns as their Vraxian guests. The cat had somehow intuited the importance of the occasion, carrying herself with an air of diplomatic dignity that lasted at least until she spotted a floating data crystal that needed batting. Today marks a new chapter in interstellar relations, Maya began, addressing the gathered crowd. What began as an accidental cultural exchange has evolved into something none of us could have predicted, much like humanity's relationship with our pets. The Vraxian delegation, led by High Coordinator ZYX, had undergone a remarkable transformation. Their once rigid crystalline forms now displayed fluid, organic patterns that would have been considered signs of dangerous instability just months ago. Several of them had even adopted what they called controlled randomness protocols, deliberately introducing elements of unpredictability into their daily routines. The Nova Protocol, ZYX announced, their form shimmering with pride, has revolutionized our understanding of progress. By studying Earth's companion animals, we've developed technologies that surpass our previous limitations. But more importantly, we've discovered a new way of viewing the universe. The evidence of this transformation surrounded them. The new Vraxian ships docked alongside the Harmony featured designs that would have been impossible under their old rigid thinking. Crystalline structures flowed like liquid metal, adapting to space conditions with an organic flexibility that maintained perfect structural integrity through controlled chaos rather than imposed order. Vex, now the head of the Joint Research Initiative, stepped forward to demonstrate their latest breakthrough. By applying the principles we learned from studying Nova's hunting patterns, we've developed navigation systems that can plot courses through space-time distortions that our previous computers found incomprehensible. The same unpredictability that makes a cat's path impossible to predict makes our ships impossible for hostile entities to intercept. Dr. Patel pulled up a holographic display showing the neural interface data they'd gathered over the months. The implications go beyond technology. We're seeing evidence that the human-pet bond creates unique neural patterns that enhance both species' cognitive abilities. The Vraxians' adaptation of these principles has led to the first documented evolution of their crystalline consciousness in 10,000 years. Lieutenant Park, who had been supervising the security aspects of the program, added his report. We're already seeing applications in defense systems, environmental adaptation, and even architecture. The Vraxians' new orbital stations incorporate spaces specifically designed for unpredictable movement patterns, what we're calling cat-optimized environments. Nova chose this moment to demonstrate the concept perfectly, finding an impossibly high perch on a crystalline projection and settling down for a nap, her silver fur contrasting beautifully with the rainbow refractions of light through the alien structure. But perhaps the most significant change, Maya continued, has been in how we view our place in the galaxy. The Vraxians taught us the value of order and precision, while we showed them the power of embracing uncertainty. Together, we've created something greater than either of our civilizations could have achieved alone. The ceremony proceeded with the official inauguration of the IPAP. Under the new program, specially trained humans and their animal companions would serve as cultural ambassadors to alien species, helping bridge the gap between different ways of thinking about consciousness, intelligence, and cooperation. The universe, ZYX observed, watching Nova wake up and immediately begin grooming as if she hadn't just been sleeping in a position that defied several laws of physics, is far more complex than we imagined. Perhaps that is why your species succeeded where ours hesitated. You never tried to fully understand it. You simply learned to dance with its mysteries. As if to punctuate this point, Nova suddenly perked up and stared intently at a seemingly empty corner of the room. Moments later, the station's sensors detected a minor gravitational anomaly that would have gone unnoticed by conventional monitoring systems. She still does that, Maya laughed, watching the Vraxian scientists rush to analyze the phenomenon. After all this time, all our research, all our technological advances, she still sees things we don't understand. And that, Vex added, their patterns rippling with joy, is exactly why we need her, and all of Earth's remarkable companions. They remind us that there is always more to discover, always another mystery to explore. The ceremony concluded with what would have been unthinkable 6 months ago, a group of Vraxian scientists presenting Nova with a ceremonial crystal that they had deliberately grown in an unpredictable pattern. The cat batted it around for a moment before deciding that the box it came in was far more interesting. Some things never change, Maya smiled, watching the Vraxians take detailed notes on this typically feline behavior. Later, as the dignitaries mingled and discussed the future of human-Vraxian relations, Maya found a quiet moment to sit with Nova in their quarters. The cat curled up in her lap, purring contentedly, seemingly unaware that she had sparked a revolution in interstellar relations. You know, Maya mused, scratching behind Nova's ears, when I smuggled you aboard that first mission, I never imagined you'd end up being the key to humanity's greatest diplomatic breakthrough. Though maybe I should have known, cats have always been good at bringing people together, even when those people happen to be crystalline aliens. Nova's only response was to purr louder, but somewhere in the station, a new crystal was growing in a pattern that no one could predict, and that was exactly how it was meant to be.